Tom here. So this is one of my students who's done fantastic. This is Chris. You guys already know most of it. So he's been growing and building his portfolio, and so he was just kind of posing a question to me because I tell everybody when I look back in hindsight on my portfolio, uh, I the only regrets I've ever had is holding on to property too long and not flipping. In the beginning, you can't afford not to flip because even if you're getting a 30% return, if that's all your money tied up and you're getting 30%, it's not going to compare. Because if you're getting 30%, it means you made money on that purchase. And so you're leaving money that you could otherwise, double again or triple again or whatever the case may be. So Chris is in a position where he's already done, kind of a little of both. He's had some nice flips. He's made 50 grand on a piece of land last month. And he owns one house in this neighborhood right now where he's at that he enjoys the income. He's got a nice line of credit against it, right?
I was just thinking yesterday, Tom, like, if it weren't for running into you, reading your book, being in the mentorship, I wouldn't even know what a revolving line of credit even meant. Yeah. And even more importantly, how to use it properly. Right. And so, so I have a house that's fully paid for. It actually was part of a 1031 exchange, which I also learned from the class. But that house is fully paid for. And so I can borrow against it for my flips or my future purchases. And I just did a renewal on that line of credit, and it's a lower basis points,
And is that is it that line of credit that'll be paying for this house?
Yeah.
Okay, so Chris just got another house. He got another house nearby, so he's going to more or less max out his line of credit. Not quite. No.
Maybe 70%.
He's going to take about 70% of his line of credit out of this house that he owns. It's free and clear. And he's already utilized it, bought property, flipped it, and he's been doing well with it. And so, but now he's got another house, a nice little place, and he's getting it about 100,000 under market, right at about 100 grand. I mean, he'll probably put 30 in it and make almost 100 grand, right?
It's hard to say. It depends where the market is in March.
Yeah.
If I were to be really conservative, I would say on a bad day I make 60 grand.
60 grand. So with that in mind, he's buying a house that's worth about 330, 360 for 230. It's worth about 100 more than he's paying for it. Even if he just cleaned up, turned it, I think he could make 100 grand maybe. I mean, he feels maybe a little bit differently, but either way, it's pretty close to that. And so, but what he's faced with is a couple of things that we've talked about. One is if he buys it, he's a handy guy. He can do the work himself. But he's torn. He can get it done quicker if he subs it out. But he's got to pay a premium for that work. So there's one thing. The next thing is should he put a tenant in there for a year? Potentially put a tenant in there for a year. He could refi this property that he paid cash for. It's okay. He could refi this property that he's paying cash for after he puts a tenant in there, and then he could get all of his money that he paid for it because he's buying it 30-40% of the market, so he can sell it and get all his money back. So that's what he wants to weigh against. That was the question: is well, should I sell it, get my money back? He goes, I could keep it as a rental, and I could have it'd be $100 a month in the positive, and maybe wait in a year, he'll get more for it. He might get another 60 grand for it. The way things are going, it looks pretty good. Interest rates have been dropping, so it may be. And I feel that in a year, everything that I have in this neighborhood, I have a bunch of stuff in the same area, and all that stuff I plan on selling in 2027. I think that'll be the prime time, and I could be wrong. But he goes, I don't know if I should just flip it and take the money, or should I hold it? And so then he becomes a bit of a speculator, in which I don't really like to do too much speculation, but at the same time, when we're coming out of we feel like we've kind of hit the bottom and we're coming back up, so I don't feel so bad being a little bit speculative. And that's the advantage of when you buy property right, is you can afford to speculate a little bit, right? Because you can always pull the trigger and get rid of it any time. So I don't think you're wrong to consider holding it.
Yeah, and I think the other thing I've learned is I've watched you, Tom, and understand your portfolio and how you handle your properties. You buy and hold, but you also flip, and what's fun is I can start to see it a little bit on my side. What's fun is I'm getting to the point where I get to choose.
Yeah.
Do I want to hold it, or do I need to sell it?
Yeah.
And really, at this point, that's why I'm asking the question of, well, I guess I could do either here.
Yes,
And
so he's examining where he's at, and because ultimately where Chris wants to be is he wants to take his money and buy like an industrial property or a commercial retail property and have that as a rental, because you get much more bang for your buck on cash flow than you do a home. Homes, you can make a lot more money on buying and making a gain, like doing what he's doing on this property. It's tougher to do a little bit with retail. Certainly for this price point, it's impossible. But so we're kind of examining that question, and you know, the good thing is it's just math. So like I said, what I was going to tell you, Chris, is if you hold it, you know, I do feel like better days are coming. So I think it's a safe one to hold if you want to keep it. But what's the downside of flipping it? I mean, if you're going to pull out completely, instead of getting your 230 back, you're going to probably have 300 net. So you'll have an extra 70 grand. Now, if you can roll it into something, then you can defer the taxes.
Right.
And the chances are, and this is rare, because he bought that house cheap enough, it's very likely he could roll the gains of this property into another house that's under market. He could buy something for, you know, 360 or 400 grand that's worth 500 or more. So you have that potential to do that. Or you buy two houses.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. And I think the other thing I'm curious about, again, you only understand, for me, I won't generalize, I only understand the game the more that I play it.
Yeah.
And so I can hear you talk about real estate all day, but until I go through a transaction or 2 or 3 or now 16 myself,
Yep.
I'm like,
16 already. Wow, 16 properties. You've only been 4 years, 5 years.
Yeah, but now I really understand when I go to the table. I understand what the game pieces are. I understand how I can move them. I understand what the advantages and disadvantages are of how quick to make a move versus taking my time.
Sure.
And so I think what I can appreciate is I can appreciate both sides of the coin. I know that there's people out there that they save up money, they buy a house. They save up money, they buy a house. They save up money, they buy a house. And at the end of the day, they're comfortable with 4 houses that they pay off, they're owned free and
10 or
clear.
15 years.
Yeah, and they hold them for 15 years, maybe 30 years.
That's getting rich slow.
Yeah.
But it's not bad. It's still not a bad plan. And for somebody that's busy, and he's not, I don't consider you busy.
No.
Yeah. My gut is, and this is what I already told him. I said, because there is no flat rule. There is no flat rule, because every deal is nuanced. And what's sometimes the nuance is this: do I have something better to do with the money at the point that he's getting ready to rent it?
I will tell you this, what's also kind of, as I examine my options, it's like, okay, well, like, let's say I make 60, 70 grand on this property. And I know that you're not as hot on land, and you've done a bunch of land deals. I've done a handful of land deals myself, but man, I've got one land deal right now, and it's $2,000 a month. That's just mailbox money for me coming back to me.
The one that you carry on.
It's owner finance, and so now I'm thinking, I'm like, well, would I rather babysit a tenant in a house with pipes and toilets and all of that, or would I just rather go buy a piece of land, own it outright, and then owner finance the deal to someone else?
Right, and so what Chris hasn't had happen to him yet, and I have, okay, is I've had like, 50 notes.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was in my late 20s, and I had about 10 or 12,000 a month coming in from notes. And then times got rough and tough, got bad. And so what would happen was every month somebody would default and stop paying me. And now I'm faced with taking the property back, and there might be a first on it. Maybe I'm in the second position. Mm-hmm. So now do I want to take it back and take over a first while my income's declining? And I'm telling you.
And the property values are going down.
Yeah. So you're in a declining market, and this is what I went through. So I had $12,000 a month coming in, and I had somebody default on a $2,800 a month. Was it $2,800 a month? Let me think about this. So I had a note coming in $2,450 a month. That's 10% interest on a $295,000 note.
Your memory is amazing.
Yeah, it was a big note. It was
but like all of your deals, like you just know them like.
Yeah, there were big deals. And then I had another note that I was collecting. I sold a property for $165 that I paid $30. So I had a note that was paying me. I think they put 60 something, but they owed me $100,000, so I was
Sure.
getting $1,000 a month on that one, and they actually paid me off cash, thank God, and then the other one defaulted, and I took the property back, but there wasn't a first on that one. So, but now that's $2,400 a month not coming in. Then I had all these other notes for $200, $350, $100 a month. Those kept falling, and some of them, if there was a second on it, I told the people, I said, you know what? I'm going to forgive the note. You can just have it. And I just let them take it for the first, because I didn't want to take the property over. I didn't want to take it back.
Yeah.
So I let it go. And so I know very well how notes can go bad. Okay.
Yeah.
So are you in a first position or a second position?
First.
First position. Okay. So you're probably pretty safe, and you can always resell it. And if you got a decent amount down when you sold that, then chances are, even in tough times, you'll be able to sell it. And that's what happened on the guy that owed me the $295. He had cross collateralized many notes that he had, and then those notes went bad, so it just compounded his problems.
Yeah, my note right now, it was a note for sold the property for $55,000, and he put $8,000 down, and it's a 3-year note at 8.5% interest.
Right, and you know that buyer, so he probably knows something that might make him feel good or bad about how good a risk he is, and it's probably pretty good from what I gather. So that one, of course, you're going to probably be safe on anyways. It is, but the mailbox money. Listen, mailbox money is rent and notes, right? They're both mailbox money. I enjoy rents more than notes, I would say, only because of the fact that I have seen them go bad in bad times. Of course, first trust deeds are the best because there's nothing behind it except taxes you'll be paying. And not getting the income that you got anymore.
Yeah.
I would say on this house, this is what I would say is there is no flat answer like, oh yeah, just sell it. Okay, now I could make that determination if you were done with the house and it's ready to sell. And what I would look at, I'd go, okay, what can I, looking at the market, what it is today, what can I get rid of it for? Yeah. And even knowing that it's probably going to be worth another 50 in a year, the way things are going for sure, I would be inclined, I would sell it. Number one, if I had something else to buy. If I had something else to buy. And you're going to find something else to buy. So
it keeps happening.
Yeah, it keeps happening. And it's hard to get that. By the way, that's one of the toughest things when you get in the class. First you can't believe you're going to make your first deal. Then you make your first deal, your second deal, third deal. And then you start to realize, oh, I am going to find another deal. I am going to find another deal. It takes a while to get there, but you do get there eventually. That's what I would weigh out is I would just say wait until you have this thing done and ready to sell. Just from the pictures I looked at, I don't think I'd redo the tile. You might, but that's your choice. I don't think you're going to be a net gain. Maybe it'll make it easier to maybe make it easier to sell or not. Maybe, but it's old tile, but it looks like it'll clean up fine. It just look a little bit dated. But we got to remember, people look at them and they go, "Oh yeah, someday I'll retile that myself." People say that stuff all the time.
And then 20 years later,
it's never
still
true.
There.
Yeah. They realize they can't do tile. Also, that we call that blue sky. Let somebody else dream about those things. I think the way to go on this one, Chris, is just it's a hoarder house. It's a pigsty. He's just got to gut it, clean it. You can decide whether or not it's worth doing the countertops or not. Probably is. Looks like Formica, but is it Formica?
It is Formica. Yep.
Yeah, but if it's super clean and neat, listen, I'll leave a house alone if everything is neat and clean. Because a lot of times you get a home that somebody had completely redone it and made it nice 10 years ago. They did an update, or 15 years ago, where they put in brand new Formica, and they're so proud of their Formica countertops. And today, we're kind of like, that's ugly. You might have put in shag carpeting at the same time. Who knows? You have to go far enough back. If it's super neat and clean, I love a house that's just perfectly kept. Even if it's dated, I love it. It's fine for me.
Because somebody's going to rent it.
Because somebody's going to rent it, but also I think somebody will buy it too. Some people are like, oh, no, forget it. And I understand that too. They know they'll never do it. But
this is a question for you, just since we're on the topic, if there's anybody else out there flipping a house right now. But in this similar situation, we were just talking earlier about things I would get my money back on and things you won't get your money back on. What would you say some of those items are?
Well, if it's a wash, you're not making money, which I kind of feel like is losing money. So, I think you could do the tile, and I don't think might help the house sell quicker. It's going to take longer to get the house finished. So, when you figure it, you're extending another month or two, and whatever that costs you in interest. it may not be worth it.
Right.
So I tend to think just gut it, clean it, make it shine. And if I was saying just go shoot crown molding, because crown molding is pretty inexpensive to do. You're going to paint the place anyways, and it's a nice little touch. And it kind of makes the ceilings look tall when you put in crown.
And you
molding.
just do that in the main spaces?
I do down I'll do every bedroom. I like doing the bedrooms and the hallway and in the living room, and a lot of times you get vaulted ceilings, might get more difficult to do.
I think these are 10-foot ceilings.
Yeah, and you've got a little bit of stuff, but it still looks like they'd crown out okay.
Yeah.
Maybe main thing is I would just say my advice on this is just don't do the tile if you don't have to. Just make it super clean, paint it, maybe shoot the crown mold, and then new floor for sure, and then look at what the market is at that moment when you're within a week or two of, you know what I mean? And then you can decide, rent it out or just sell it. Just sell it. And who knows, and keep looking for a property because you may have something to roll it into. And if you have something to roll it into, it's a no-brainer, sell it.
Yeah.
If you have something to roll the profits into, I would just for sure sell it. If you don't, then you kind of, that's why I say it's those circumstances that will affect whether I keep something or sell it.
Mm-hmm.
I just got one. In fact, it was one I gave Chris a referral on a property. Because here's the other thing. What's bound to happen is if he doesn't sell the house, he'll get another house and he'll be able to get that one because he's got enough credit line off the deal he's got. He can refi this property and buy another house. But what if you get two? Okay. And then you're going, I can't buy another one. But I could have if I sold that place. You know what I mean? So those are the things that kind of come into play. But yeah, it's this is one of the greatest things about mentorship for me. It's being able to share, but also my students are becoming my peers. Are becoming really really good. And
we'll
Chris
do
is one of those guys.
and we'll do let's do a walkthrough of this one when I get the keys. When the owner moves out, let's do a walkthrough so we can maybe look at a before and after, and
sure
we can have another discussion once the house is finished and look at numbers and see what makes sense.
Okay.
But yeah, I do have my eyes. You know this. I have my eyes set on my first commercial property at some point.
I hadn't even shared them. I got a great one. I got a killer one. I got to tell them about.
Yeah.
Cool. So and like I said, I always say be very cryptic about your deals till you get them closed. So I'm not going to share it here, but it will be in the class for sure, or maybe on YouTube after it's done. But you're never going to get the details how I got it. But anyways. So, anything else? Or
hit like, hit subscribe.
Thank you for that.
Check out the mentorship. Check out the testimonials, FlipAnythingUSA.com.
And get the book, Wake Up and Smell the Real Estate. Been a bestseller on Amazon, Audible, and Kindle. That's how Chris found me. And anyways, so thanks for watching.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks. You want to learn how to make millions of dollars in real estate? I've made tens of millions over my lifetime, and I'm showing people how to do it. Get in my free webinar. I have it every Thursday, 7 p.m. Central. Go to the link below, FlipAnythingUSA.com/webinar. Sign up for it. You can talk to me face-to-face if you want. Don't waste any time. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. You don't want to miss my channel. I've been doing it for years.